So communication, there's a definition of communication on the screen. As communication means the passing on of information to extend or confirm someone's knowledge or to modify attitudes. That's one definition of communication. Good communication helps people understand their responsibilities, their roles. Hopefully, that's the idea. There are problems with communication. There's a little phrase there. I know you believe you understood what you think I said, but I'm not sure you realise that what you heard is not what I meant. Work that one out. Confusion. So a little question. What are the barriers to good communication? Now, when we talk communication, you can see on the screen here, it says about the medium, as in the way the message is put across. Then you've got about the person who's sending the message and the person who's receiving the message. So have a little think about barriers to good communication. Again, I'll give you 2 minutes. Okay, there we go. So when we talk about communication and health and safety, just have a think about your own experiences. Some of you may work for multiple companies over a period of time. So different ways of communicating on safety. How do you get a safety message across? There's a variety of methods to communicate health and safety. Different types of people. What did you say about the disabilities? About people who are blind, so visual's no good. People that are deaf, so verbal's no good. It's just getting the right method, that variety to suit people. People's reading skills, people's language skills. The type of making sure we keep it simple. So talking about methods of communication and barriers to communication. There's information on safety. There's a set of regulations came out in 1989, and you might recognise this poster. It's Health and Safety Law: What You Should Know or What You Need to Know. This came out in 1989. It was an old black and white version. The men's got revamped later on into a brownie and pink poster. And then they came out with this a few years later, and this is the current standard. A lot of people in a workplace would have seen this poster. It's usually displayed here, there, everywhere. But as to how many people have actually read it is another thing. Now, I'm not going to ask you if you've read it or not, but it is something I think for all employers, it should be brought to their attention. Up until this latest poster came out a few years ago, before that, it was by law, an employer had to display the poster. It had to be displayed so people could see it. So quite often it was in restrooms, or if you have a coffee machine or something like that, it would be near there. It's a useful place to put it because people queuing up for their coffee, nothing else to do, so read the poster. The poster it's very informative. It shows the basics of what your employer should be doing for you. Then it's what you should be doing as an employee. And then what to do if you have a problem. Simple as that. It's just very basics the very basics of health and safety law and information to give people, to communicate with people on health and safety. On the current version, we don't have to display the poster anymore, although I still think it's a very good thing to have up in the workplace. An employer can, legally now can just give people an A5 leaflet version. Workplaces where we have trade unions. And there's Then later on, they brought out regulations for workplaces that don't have recognised trade unions. There are some similarities between the two, and there are some differences. So this is what we're going to go through now. The safety representatives and safety committee regulations, they came out in 1977. Now, when you think a lot of the stuff we talk about, like the management regulations and manual handling, display screen equipment, etc., a lot of things from 1992 and beyond. But before that, when you think the Health and Safety Work Act, as I said earlier, 1974, said the employer must, consult with employees. Now, that was just the basics. I mean, to put the meat on the bones, as it were, in 1977, they came out with these regulations, and it's more about how this can be done. And so it's about the union, with consultation with the company, that the union would appoint health and safety representatives. So it is a trade union thing. So officially, the health and safety representative, or safety rep, as we tend to say now, officially that is a trade union thing. And we go through the functions. They have certain functions of what the safety reps can actually do, what their duties or what their functions are. So we'll come on to that. Now, the union have to tell the company in writing who these safety reps are and when does it start. So that's what cessation is. When does their appointment as a safety rep start? And it is recommended that a health and safety safety rep has 2 years experience within that role, not necessarily within that company. It could be someone who's done a similar role in another company, but they should have about a couple of years experience. It's a recommendation. It's not an absolute, but it's a recommendation. And you do get the odd occasion where a safety rep can represent more than one union. An example of that, certainly something that's not happening at the moment, theatres. In the theatres, big theatres and that, you may well have a band or an orchestra, and they'll be represented by their union is the musicians' union. But then you also then got the actors, the players, as it were, the people on the stage. They have their own union. And so you might have one rep representing the actors' union, equity, thinking about it, equity, and the musicians' union. So that's an example I know of. There may well be others. So a safety rep can represent more than one union. Now, a question comes up here. It says, how many representatives? The question is, what would you take into account when assessing how many safety reps a company needs? There you go. Yeah, employees, occupational range, like size, we say, shifts, risk levels, all comes into play. There's a very similar calculation. If you're ever asked, what would you take into account when deciding how many first aiders to have? There are some other things as well, but it's very similar, a very similar thing. Also, take into account holidays and covering holidays. So some companies will have loads of reps. Others, a smaller company, would only have maybe a couple, maybe a handful of reps. So it just comes down. That's why there's a little bit of an assessment, to decide how many reps. Now, this is usually negotiation between the union and the company, to the company's decision, and all that we take into account, along with the accident record. If you say we've got a lot of accidents or a lot of things going wrong, we might have more. So yeah, good. Right. So this safety reps, safety committee regulations, the actual safety reps themselves. So this is for the union health and safety reps. Their functions, they can investigate hazards. So they do the investigation, take part in looking at RIDDOR accidents, taking part in the investigation for those accidents. RIDDOR, remember, reporting of injuries, diseases and dangerous occurrences regulations. They can investigate complaints from their fellow members. So fellow union members within that area, the area they cover, investigate any complaints. as representatives. So they will be representing their fellow members in consultation with the employer. And that could be consultation on, like new equipment or new procedures, etc. Oh, hello, did someone just say something? Safety representatives. Now, safety committees is something we're going to come on to, but should a company have a safety committee, then the safety reps can attend that. A safety committee, if 2 or more reps go to the company and say, we want you to set up a safety committee, then it must be done. And I will come back on that in a while. If the enforcing authority, so HSE or local authority, depending on nature of the company, if they've been in, done an accident investigation or done a random inspection, etc., well, the safety reps are entitled to receive the information that the company gets. So, quite often an employer will get the information from the enforcing authority. Well, safety representatives have the entitlement to see that information as well. They have the legal right to look at any safety-related documentation. So this is a very, a set of regulations. It's very, so this is what they are entitled to. It doesn't mean to say we can't go above and beyond that. In fact, the companies that get on really well with their staff and their safety reps get a good relationship and two-way communication. We can go above what the law says. Now, the actual legal function there for the inspections, they're allowed to inspect the workplace every 3 months. Well, a company might say to their safety reps, you can do it every month if you like, because at the end of the day, it's all helping to either maintain or improve health and safety standards. So the legal side of it is if they're entitled to inspect every 3 months or every quarter, there is no reason why a company can't say to them, well, if you want to do it more often, fine. They're entitled to facilities to enable functions to be fulfilled, i.e. A meeting place, office space, chairs, desk, access to the internet, what have you, telephone, general facilities for them to carry out their functions, somewhere to meet with their fellow members. It doesn't mean to say, you might have a large company, lots of people, there might be a lot of union members. It doesn't mean to say they have to have full-time access to a great big function room, a big assembly area. But it does mean, like we can enable if they need to have a meeting with everybody, somewhere they can go. But it'd be somewhere, somewhere suitable for the amount of people. Also, inspections, when there's been a RID or reportable accident, certain things have to be reported. So it's been a notifiable accident. That's an accident that's notifiable to the enforcing authority. Then that's going to be, they can inspect the workplace where there's been an accident as long as it is safe to do so. And that safe to do so applies to anybody. But the safety reps are entitled to carry out an inspection after an accident if it is safe. And then time off with pay, that's time off with pay to attend functions. I mean, to get a trade union congress and various functions go on over the years, over a period of a year. So time off with pay to attend functions and to be trained as well. There is an official safety representatives course. It's almost similar. I don't know about nowadays, but I know some years ago it was very similar to a Nebosh course. We've had people, safety reps here, who have done the union training, and they've come here and said, and to praise the Nebosh here, quite a few of them said, actually, this is a better course. So just promoting Nebosh there for you. Okay, can somebody tell me, it says appeals to ET. So if they're not allowed to carry out their functions, if the employer says, no, you can't inspect every 3 months, or you can't look at certain documentation, or you can't get information from the enforcers, the appeal goes to the ET. Can anybody tell me what ET stands for? And it's not extraterrestrial.
Employment Tribunal?
Employment Tribunal, thank you very much. Yeah, the Employment Tribunal only hears certain health and safety related things, and one of them is appeals from union safety reps. Okay, now one way, this whole thing about cooperation between employer and employees, you know, a safety committee, lots of companies have safety committees now, but originally a safety committee was a union related thing. So I said earlier about if 2 union reps go to the company, and so 2 union safety reps go to the company, go to the employer and say, we want you to set up a committee, then it's got to be done. But safety committees, some of you might sit on safety committees because you're all, you know, obviously doing this safety course, you've all got safety knowledge there. Question is, why might a safety committee be ineffective? Now, I think I'm going to do this in a breakout here, so just bear with me while I get back into my... oh, no, gone wrong again. There we go. Okay. Okay, so we're on 7. Right, so we're the two rooms I've got, so I'm just going to jot this down this time, but I forgot to do last time. Right, so I've got Andy, Olivia, Sarah, and Stephen. And so then we've got John, Philip, and Sean. Right, I'm just going to open the rooms. There you go. Now, for some reason, Chris, you're not. I'm going to assign you to the second room. That's it. It's just got Stephen to go. So you've got your 2 groups. Lovely, thank you. So yeah, so that is the question. Why might a safety committee be ineffective? Now, maybe for your own personal experience, you can come up with ideas on this, or just think about it and chat within your groups. So I'll give you, say, 5 minutes. Have a bash at that question.
Yeah, we talked about hostile attitudes between members.
Yes, yeah, it can be. There is sometimes that attitude of them and us. There's a lack of leadership, if you like, lack of a strong chairperson. Thank you, that's great. Right.
No agenda.
Yes, yes, no agenda. So it's like a random discussion.
We've got here overbearing characters in the room, sort of dominating discussion, yes. Perhaps not allowing others to talk.
We thought actions as well is like if actions are assigned, people following through and getting an outcome to them.
Yeah, if they are assigned, that's a positive. If they're not assigned, so we come to discussion, we have discussions, we come to agreements, but no one gets the job right. You put that in place, you put this in place. So the lack of assigning people to the recommendations, the discussions, if you like. Yeah, that can be a problem. Anything else?
Participation, people actually turning up.
Yes, yeah. You generally get a safety committee, you have a set number of people, and it's usually a nice balance. The ideal way is to have a good balance between employer and employee representation. But you might find that either the management side they don't all turn up, or the safety reps don't turn up. You know, so you get an imbalance, and that is a problem. That is a major problem. You know, so people not turning up for the meetings, or sort of like, you know, people either not turning up, or just the wrong mix of people, if you like. You know, too many management, not enough safety reps, or vice versa. Okay, right. Just sorry, Chris, back to yourself. Anything else you got there?
Not really. Just that they all really sort of come back to lack of leadership on this committee, as with most things. You know, lack of interest, lack of participation, no agenda. Yeah. They all come down to the person chairing it, really.
And you said about attendees, yeah, whether people actually, you know, attend or not. So, like, you know, mentioned, I've been through that already, but yeah, the attendees, equal numbers. Again, we said about that. You know, it could be an imbalance to make it ineffective. So to make it effective, obviously turn these things on their head. Yeah, nice equal numbers. That's employee representatives and employer representatives, if you like. You know, like so employer, employee. The frequency of the meetings. I mean, the meetings can be held, you know, we set an agreement in advance. When we're setting up a committee, we discuss and come to an agreement on how often are we going to meet. You want it too infrequently, you know, once a year is not much use, you know, like, so maybe it's going to be monthly, quarterly, you know, be good, you know, so having them regular enough to make it good. So sometimes the problem is not having them often enough. Can also be a problem having them too often. There's so much time sitting around talking, having these meetings, we don't actually get time to get anything done. So the frequency is quite important. By terms of reference, this is going back, you said about leadership and the chairman, etc. Well, terms of reference for a safety committee, what we're talking about are the rules of how this committee is going to operate. And so the rules will be something like, you know, like, right, the meetings will be quarterly. Attendance is paramount, and you must attend. So if someone's on a safety committee and we set the dates in advance, if it's quarterly, there's only going to be 4 meetings a year. People aren't allowed to book holiday on those dates. Now, obviously, if someone is very ill, etc., that's, you know, unforeseen circumstance. But things like holidays, you know, if you know you're on a committee, you know you're meeting on these 4 dates a year, then you can't book holiday during those dates. Preferably, even if it's a monthly committee, you know, preferably again, you know, like you make sure, so like, you know, you keep those times free. It doesn't have to be a long time. It's not like a whole day thing. You know, like it could be a couple of hours. It could be less. Sometimes a bit more. It depends on what's going on. But so in terms of reference, you set the rules in advance. So you say to people, right, to be on this committee, these are the rules. You must attend. You know, it's one way of getting around that, you know, lack of attendance thing. And as you say, the lack of leadership, the chairperson has got to be the right person. Quite often, the suggestion is don't make the health and safety manager or what have you the chairperson. You want someone who's quite reasonably senior, and it could be, you know, some companies it may be the MD, depends on the size of company and how many roles you've got. But it could be the MD. It could be someone who can keep it under control. Someone who's going to sort of like keep it to the agenda. Keep it to the you know, the subject matter in hand, and not let people, you know, what's the expression, go off on one. You know, like start talking about, oh, I don't know, last night's football or cookery programs or what have you. Keeping it actually on health and safety, you know, the things on the agenda, that's what we will stick to. So you want a strong chairperson, someone who can keep control, someone who's also got the respect of people. So that's why usually someone reasonably senior as well. And as we say, you know, like one of the problems of committees is not having the authority to do something, which makes it a waste of time, really. So having the authority, making sure that, yeah, we come to discussions, we come to agreements, and we have discussions, come to agreements, and then we've got the power to do something with those agreements. We've got a budget, we've got the authority, we've got the resources to put those recommendations, if you like, or the results of discussions, actually put them into place. And I said about attendance at meetings, we're making sure we set these meetings on set dates, but occasionally things might happen within a company, like maybe a major accident or there's a major overhaul, you've been taken over by something might lead to the cancellation of the meetings. But hopefully it's a last resort. Hopefully the last thing you want to do is cancel the meeting. So it's got to be something major to cause cancellations. So if an ineffective committee is when the meetings are called off, people don't turn up, we've got no rules, we've got a weak chairperson, you know, we've got no authority, all these things are the downside. So we turn them on their heads and make them into a positive. That's what makes a good safety committee. And then other people who aren't on the committee, how do they get information? Well, usually on these committees, somebody's going to take minutes, but getting someone to actually type up the minutes and make sure they get communicated out to other people. And so we mentioned notice boards. Well, I mentioned anyway notice boards earlier on. It's a good place to put the, you know, the latest committee meeting minutes. So that is legally, this is from the safety committee regulations. T reps go to the company and say we want you to set up a committee, but it must be done. I mean, so this is all part of the safety committee regulations. So that's for unionised workplaces. Now then, that was 1977. We had the 1980s, and there was quite a battle between government and unions and what have you, and lots of things going on. It got to the point, we got to the 90s and thought, actually, lots of people with workplaces don't have unions. They're not covered by any trade unions. But there was still that duty under the Health and Safety at Work Act to consult with employees. And so in 1996, we came up with a set of regulations, consultation with employees regulations. So this is not quite as in-depth as the Safety Committee regulations, but the whole thing is focused on consulting with staff. To say it covers employees not represented by a union. The consultation side of it, and there is guidance for all of these things. The consultation side of it is, like, make sure when we're talking about, new technologies, etc., new arrangements for health and safety, making sure, employers discussed it with staff. There's different ways of consultation being carried out. Making sure things like, new issues, could be new technology, could be new work procedures. It says about arrangements of competent people, so letting the employees know who are the competent people. By competent people, that could be for any safety-related role. So making sure, we're talking about health and safety information for employees, so consulting about information, what's going to go to the employees, making sure we can talk about training needs. Because obviously, quite often when we talk about training, the company might say you will be trained on this, that, and the other. Where maybe someone's gone back to the company and said, "I need more training," which is part of it's quite actually entitled to do that. And so in our consultation with employees, like to about, well, what would you like? What training do you think will benefit? Because if it benefits the employee, it could well benefit the company as well. So both sides win. I mentioned about new technology, the consequences. And then at the end there, we get a ROSE. What is a ROSE? What does ROSE, it's an acronym, what does ROSE stand for?
Representative of Employee Services.
That's very close, very close. Representatives of Employee Safety. Nearly, Sarah, nearly.
Close.
So under this set of regulations, consultation with employee regulations, we can have what everyone's nowadays is called a safety rep, but actually, officially, a non-union representative is a ROSE. But most ROSEs don't even know they're a ROSE. At the end of the day, having consultation, having sort of like a safety committee in that, is a good thing to have, regardless of whether we've got unions or not. Say legally it comes under one particular set of regulations, and this comes under another. But the ROSE, the representatives of employees, basically, employee safety. Now, ROSE's functions, it's not as many as the union's safety rep, but again, just like with the safety committee regulations, there's no reason why any company can't go above what the law says. The law's there as a basic standard, as a basic thing. We can always go above the law. There's nothing wrong with that. So it's a bit similar to the union safety reps. Representations on hazards. So sort of like discussion, if there's hazards in the workplace and people aren't happy about it, well then the ROSE can go to the employer and discuss it. It could be on other health and safety issues, maybe with equipment or working procedures, etc. So it is that link between employee and employer, all part of that engagement we mentioned earlier. So consultation, again, with new procedures, new equipment, etc., like the ROSE can represent their fellow employees, as opposed to the union reps talk about fellow members, which one's fellow employees. And again, they can review RIDDOR accidents. So again, reporting of injuries, diseases, dangerous occurrences, where certain events have to be reported to the authorities. The ROSE are allowed to review those sort of accidents. So there's usually when something like that happens, there's going to be an investigation and recommendations. So the ROSE can be part of that. So they're the legal obligations, slightly less than the trade union reps. There's no demand that they can request a safety committee to be set up or anything like that. That doesn't come into it. But certainly similar to the union safety reps, time off for training, because if you're going to be in a safety role of any sort, and you should be trained to do it. Going back to our competence. Time off with pay to fulfil their obligations. I mean, so again, facilities. Now, elected representatives. We don't have to have an election to decide who's going to be a representative. In some places, some workplaces, it may be quite a small amount of staff anyway, and you may have one or two people that say, oh, I'd really like to do that. If you have lots of people say, yes, I want to be a safety rep, I want to be a representative of employees' safety, let's just clarify that. If you have lots of people want to do it, then maybe the employees could hold an election as to who's going to be their representatives. At the time period, this is, we're going to set in advance how long is this role going to go for. Is it going to be for a year, for 2 years? So in advance, you set the time period. So we're going to have an election. This is going to be a 12-month thing or a 24-month thing. Your company decides. You still have discussions and come to an agreement. And again, in a similar thing to how many safety reps do we have, well, it's a similar calculation, if you like, for how many roles should we have, how many representatives of employee safety. Actually, L146 is from the Health and Safety Executive, and it's Consulting Workers on Health and Safety, that's the title, and it is the guidance to the Safety Reps, Safety Committees Regulations 1977 and the Health and Safety Consultation with Employees Regulations 1996. So one book covers both. Similar to Safety Reps, Safety Committee Regulations, if the rows feel they're not being allowed to carry out their functions, their obligations, then again, just like the safety reps, union safety reps, they go to the employment tribunal for appeal. With all these things, it's always like raise the issue with the company first. It's not just going to go running straight to an employment tribunal. It's got to raise the issue with the company first, with the employer. Okay, so all these C's we've had, we have the safety committee, I've got the committee, consultation, we talk about communication, cooperation. I mean, I've mentioned earlier, but control, staying in control, very much a management thing. Keeping an eye on things, not turning a blind eye is in place. And so, control and keeping in control of a company is a very important part of health and safety. Now, element 1 on this module, on this course, element 1, we did about control of contractors, and it was about third-party control of other people, and it's part of it. It all links in together. Just reminds me, what are the things that make up competence?
Experience.
Yes, experience.
Knowledge.
Knowledge.
Skills.
Skills.
Training.
Training. Yeah, all of those. It's a combination. It's not absolutely having everything. Skills, qualifications, training, relevant knowledge, experience, personal attributes as well. Have communication skills, how we communicate with people comes into it. And I've always said, I've said it before, the ability to know the limitations of your own competence, i.e. knowing where your competence is finished.